I have a confession to make. I hear voices. Now, I'm not talking about the kind like auditory hallucinations that medicine and psychologists would say are part of a pathological process. I'm talking about voices like you're hearing right now. You hear my voice now, right? The voices I hear sometimes are affirming, sometimes they're not quite so affirming. Sometimes they tell us about beliefs, attitudes, values, and prescribed standards. What I'd like to do now is share a couple of stories about voices I've heard in the past. When I was 8 years old, my mother took me to a local fair where they were having pony rides for children. I used to watch Roy Rogers and the Lone Ranger on television, and they were heroes of the time. That's before some of your time. And I thought it was going to be really cool to ride on a pony like those cowboys rode on their horses. So my mother took me to the fair. I got eagerly in line as she went and waited with the other parents who were waiting for their children. And as the line got shorter and shorter and I got closer and closer to the pony, still my excitement grew and grew and grew. I heard something behind me. I turned around and I saw 3 boys. I didn't know them. I had never met them before, but they were laughing, and they were laughing at me. They pointed to me and they said, "What do you think you're doing? Don't you know girls don't ride ponies?" Really? I heard what they said, and in that split second, lots of things start going through my head. They said girls don't ride ponies. Had I ever seen a girl ride a pony? Well, Dale Evans, Roy Rogers' wife, she rode a horse, and she was like a woman, so she was a big girl, and the horse was like a big pony, so it must be okay. But she didn't look like me. Maybe what they were saying was not that girls don't ride ponies, but that girls who look like me don't ride ponies. But my mother had brought me there, and my loving parents always told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. But maybe they missed it on this point. In that split second, I was drowning in the midst of doubting voices. And I made a decision. I stepped out of line to forego the excitement and joy that I anticipated of riding the pony. Heartbroken. Second story. Same time, 8 years old, I used to bask in wearing my favorite color, red. In my home community, we would say, I love me some red. I love the energy, I love the vibrancy, I love the brightness, I love the fire of red. At that time, I was going to a Catholic elementary school. We didn't have to wear uniforms, but I had my own personal uniform. It was a gray pleated skirt, a white shirt with a collar, and the next garment, a vest. You can probably guess what color that was, right? It was red. It was bright red. It was bright like you could see it from a mile away. Nothing muted for me. One day, after school, I had gone to my grandparents' home. I had my uniform on, my personal uniform, enjoying the red, and really, I did think I was cute. You know, that's important, right? And so I was there, and my grandmother pulled me to the side, and she said, "Baby, you shouldn't be wearing that red. Black people shouldn't wear red. Red is too bright a color for black people to wear." I was demoralized. I was being told that wearing my favorite color, something that brought so much joy to my soul, there was something wrong with it. I was being told that there was something wrong with me. And so here again, an 8-year-old little girl being told something wrong, hearing some external critical voice telling her that there was something bad. But this time, that message wasn't coming from strangers. It was coming from a woman who I loved and who I knew loved me. So what do you think I did? You're right. I took that red vest off immediately and decided that red could no longer be my favorite color. I had to choose a new favorite color. So I chose, can anybody guess what color I chose? I chose blue. Blue became my color, and I became blue. And it's interesting now as I think about it as an adult clinical psychologist, the power of that I replaced my color of red, that color of passion, the color that I was passionate about, I replaced it with a color that is often associated with sad. Very powerful. And at that time, I was too young to understand the woundedness that my grandmother carried because of some external critical voices that told her what she couldn't wear because she was black. Injected oppressive voices that spoke to her, that gave her a message that she then transmitted to me. Those injected oppressive voices drowned out our affirming inner voices. So I know some of you are sitting in the audience and you're thinking, well, had that been me, I would have gotten on that pony and I would still be wearing red. And that probably is the case. It may very well be the fact that you would have continued to wear red. But don't judge that little 8-year-old girl who was me. Don't hate on her. You may wear red, but I bet there's something in your life that was red for you, something that you didn't do, something that you haven't done because some external critical voice, what I'm saying are voices of oppression, said to you, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, you can't be this, you don't deserve this because fill in the blank. Your race, your culture, your age, your gender, your physical ability. We all are exposed to these potential oppressive voices that are injected into us, not necessarily internalized. We are exposed to a cacophony of demeaning, demoralizing messages that tell us who we can't be, that interfere with us going and growing into our greatness, into our magnificence. We all encounter those. And so what do we do with that? How do we address that? Steve Jobs said, do not let the loud opinions of others drown out your inner voice. And author Iyanla Vanzant says, if the voices we hear leave any room for hate, doubt, shame, then it's time to make a change. Our affirming inner voices say none of that. They are non-judgmental, they're loving, they are kind. They help us be in touch with that core part of ourselves that is positive and good. They connect us to our power, they connect us to our humanity so that we can be human, and they connect us to our humanity so that we can be connected to others. That's the power of the affirming inner voice. But in a world that is full of noise and full of distractions, it is often very difficult to discern that powerful inner voice. And so what can we do to counteract those anti-self messages of the injected oppressive voices that really keep us from moving forward into our greatness, that interfere with us engaging in our own self-care? What must we do? Well, I'm on a mission to help us figure out how we can defuel those voices, get rid of them, eradicate them. There's no place for them in our lives. So what must we do? The answer that I bring to you is really a simple answer. It's a message that has come throughout the millennium and recognized and presented by many spiritual, cultural, and wisdom traditions. That answer is to get quiet, and be still. Be still so that you can discern the power of your affirming inner voice in the midst of the cacophony of those negative messages that we get. Sometimes called gut feelings, intuition, heart. My favorite is first mind. The affirming inner voice really speaks to your soul and speaks to your spiritness. It tells you what you can do. It provides inspiration and guidance. It's a lovely thing if you think about it. It helps you to know, helps you to protect yourself so that you can move into your powerful destiny. But you have to get quiet and you have to be still in order to discern it. So how might you do this? There are lots of different ways, and we each have to find our own way toward discerning our inner voice. For some of us, it may be prayer. For others, it's meditation, mindfulness, connecting with the thing that brings you joy, the creativity, fun. I think most of us in here are adults, so you got to play. If you're not playing, you need to play at least 4 times a day. And, you know, modern science is catching up to the knowledge of ancient wisdom on this quiet and stillness piece. In fact, research is showing if you engage in a practice of stillness, 3 to 5 minutes daily of stillness and quiet, you can more deeply connect to your inner voice, that affirming inner voice, and increase your levels of happiness. 2 for the price of 1. How's that? That's a great value. So I encourage you, I implore you to be quiet so you can get to that space, so that you can hear that affirming inner voice. Very quickly now, I want to share just one other story before I go. I love this picture. This is the picture of my great-grandmother, Mrs. Fanny Mae Pritchett, who I call Mama Fanny because, as my mother says, I have good home training and I would never dare call my elder by their first name. So this is Mama Fanny. Mama Fanny was the granddaughter of captive Africans. She was a powerful woman, and I loved her. This picture is probably from the 1940s or 1940s, actually. My grandmother was a bad A woman, protector of family and community, advocate for social justice. She lived in Fairfield, Alabama, and she would often be seen walking through the streets carrying a basket on her head like her African ancestors, full of the laundry that she had cleaned for the rich residents of the town. Mama Fanny was also the big station manager, big station master, that's what they called it, for policy in Fairfield, Alabama. Policy, for those of you who don't know, is precursor of the lottery. And some of you know about playing the numbers, right? So my grandmother was the head of that. She worked for Mr. Herman, who was a white man. So she was his employee, and then other people were under her. One day, the police decided to raid her operation. And as the numbers came in, people were taken. The police took them to the side to get them ready to go to jail. Mr. Herman was going to pay to bail them out, and the police told him to let it be because Fanny had money, let her pay for it. So Mr. Herman left, forcing my great-grandmother to use her savings to bail people out of jail. But that was okay because that was a part of her value system, that she took care of family and community, and all these people were her family and community. A little bit later on, Mr. Herman came and said, Fanny, I want you to start working for me again. Mama Fanny said, nah, Mr. Herman, I can't do that. He said, oh, you're going to do that. Who do you think you are in, fill in the blank woman, to say no to me? My great-grandmother, this time, said no again. Through words and actions, more forcefully, so he knew that she was not playing. He ran out of that house, ran down the street, and never came back to ask, harass, or threaten again. Now, if my great-grandmother could listen to her inner voice that told her that she did not have to tolerate being disrespected because of who she was, that she could resist the potentially injected oppressive voices of the Mr. Hermans of that time and era that thought their privilege allowed them to have power over her, if she could resist that, who am I to deny, resist, or avoid listening to my affirming inner voice? And so I stand before you today, more than 5 decades after that little 8-year-old girl gave up her precious color red and stepped out of line to ride that pony. I come to you more than 5 decades later, thinking about how the wisdom of Mrs. Fanny Mae Pritchett connected to the affirming inner voice of that little girl, now grown up as me, helping me to connect to my spirit and my ancestors and the message they gave me so that I could come back into wholeness in the spirit of SANKOFA, to wholeness so that I could remember my value, my worth, and to resist those voices that say to me, that say to many of us, who I can't be, what I can't do, what I don't deserve because of fill in the blank. I've been able, because of the wisdom, because of the energy of my Mama Fanny and others in my life, to connect with that inner wisdom, inner voice, so that I can resist those negative voices. And so I stand before you today, unabashedly, unashamedly, and unapologetically, wearing the red that I have reclaimed, that I've embraced, that I loved and still love. This is my joy and my wish. It is a metaphor for taking back and remembering. And so my wish for you is that you can be still and be quiet to discern that affirming inner voice for you, so that you can wear whatever was red for you. That is my wish. And so with that, I wish you all the best. Maybe I'll see you when I go to the stables. We can all ride our red as we get on those big ponies, the horses. Thank you.